Hello and welcome back to Shelf Center. This is Bryce. Thanks so much for stopping by. Thanks for liking and subscribing. If this is something you end up enjoying, you never know. It could happen. I still don't know if I'm actually saying all those words. But anyway, this is my update as far as my reading goes for December of 2024 and then my TBR for 2025. I know we're a little late into the month here. I had to take a little bit of a break off, was traveling with family, and you know how that goes. It was Christmas time and we had lots to enjoy and lots of family to go visit. So here we are. Anyway, what happened in December? December, I was getting a little nervous because it was, reaching that point in the year where your Goodreads is telling you by early December that here's your wrap up for the year. Even though there's plenty of good weeks to finish up some more books. Still doesn't make any sense to me, but that's how December goes a lot of times. Facebook likes to do that, all kinds of places. Social media likes to do this wrap up for the year much earlier in the month than I'm comfortable with. But anyway, it is what it is. I should just accept that, but it still makes no sense to me to this day. I guess because people are more concerned about the end of the year during the end of the year than they are after the end of the year, and probably there's a lot less people that will do reviews of their year after that year has happened. Only a theory. I think it's a pretty good one though. Knowing how YouTube and all these algorithms work, and that they just want to maximize views is really all that's what's guiding things, right? But anyway, my gosh, sorry about that. But we did it. We made it. 53 out of 52 books happened. Not all of them were science fiction and fantasy. There was one in December that was not, and so I definitely helped up my numbers and meet my goal by the end there. But I did get 4 books read in the month of December, and not even one of those was a graphic novel or manga to be able to make that goal. So that's the impressive part. The other one I think that's impressive is I was able to finish Rhythm of War, which is huge, as you well know, and took up a lot of my time, and is not really even I have to say, definitely not my favorite of the series, so it slowed me down a little bit. Some were some pretty big chunkers as well, some other ones. So anyway, we'll get into it. First things first though, I did read Rhythm of War, as I mentioned. Rhythm of War is great. And I'm going to do a full review here coming soon. I had issues with it. This is definitely the one. I already felt like Oathbringer had a little bit of a side quest, trying to stay spoiler free here. Had a bit of a side quest, so it felt like, all right, does a 1,300 page in hardcover book need more padding? I just felt like, okay, I felt like a side quest. It's okay, keep going here. There's still a lot of good things that happened, but then in Rhythm of War, it just felt like it was probably 500 pages longer than it needed to be. And with some of the reviews that I've probably shouldn't be watching, but have watched with Wind and Truth, it sounds like this may continue for some if I'm already there for this one. It just felt like there was a lot of just some of that tension starts to go away when you're living with it too long, and so if you suddenly the tension's just not as strong, not as good as it maybe would have been had we cut out a couple pages here and there. So that was part of it. Part of it was some issues that I did have, and I'm going to get into it with some of the things that were set up that I guess the payoff was here, and it was like it wasn't a payoff. It just didn't feel like I was paid off all that well. I do say all that to say I did include this in my top 10. It was number 1. Along with Oathbringer, it was still really good. I still really enjoyed a lot of it. And despite my criticisms, it's easier to focus on the criticisms. I did love some of the things that you got to do here, exploring the world, again, trying to keep spoilers out of this, and exploring, just one of the major events that we're dealing with was very cool and entertaining, and of course there's a great Sanderlanche in the end there, and that always makes your ratings start to plump up there. So anyway, it's still very good, but I did have my struggles, kind of really, like I already kind of saw them in the last book, but I don't know, it's hard because Way of Kings and Words of Radiance were just so good. And it has felt like it almost, which is crazy, but I don't know, I know he's had this planned out for many years, But it's kind of frustrating to just feel like it's just padding at this point. And that did slow down my reading of it. All right, this I call my lit crack at this point. And I've mentioned that multiple times now. But this is, it's not this book, but it's book 3, Dungeon Anarchist Cookbook by Matt Dinneman. Book 3 in the Dungeon Crawler Carl universe there, or series. It was excellent. It's on the same par as book 1 and book 2, and they just keep going, and it keeps like, sometimes if it's just the same thing over and over again, you're just kind of like, that's, I tire of this or something after a while. But so far, I mean, it kind of is mostly the same thing, but it's the thing. It is something I want more of, and so that's what works for it, I guess, to some degree. Obviously, there's new things that get introduced and all that, and then new mysteries and everything, and things explained in the world and all that. But still, it's basically the same thing. It hasn't really changed, and I love it. And I have to say, after Rhythm of War, where I was just, I mean, it's what is it, like 59 hours on audiobook or something like that, at least 55 to 59, somewhere around there. It's so long an audiobook where you're just like, you are living there for many, many weeks. And as opposed to this, where it was like, I think just like a couple days, and I was done with book 3 again. I just kind of felt like a breath of fresh air after Rhythm of War. So I feel bad about that. I'm the first. I feel bad, but it did feel like a breath of fresh air after reading that. Here we are. I still put Rhythm of War higher than Dungeon Crawler, but it is what it is, I guess. All right, then this is one of my favorite authors. I have mentioned in my top 10 of all time for fantasy books is the Magician's Trilogy, which I know is not everyone's cup of tea. A lot of people disagree with me, but I think it's absolutely fabulous. I read it in the right time of year where I was deep into my academics, and so it just hit the right spot. So I followed up with Lev Grossman's his biggest, newest book here. It is a standalone. I will say that, so that is very nice. And I have to say I was a little disappointed. I enjoyed it overall, and I think for the most part I really did enjoy it. I was a little disappointed, and I'm still trying to figure out why. Some of it I feel like I know Lev Grossman is a very smart individual, but it felt like there was a one-sided argument here. And I don't want to get into spoilers here, but it felt one-sided, and I like when an author can argue both sides of the argument equally. I liked a lot of things that were involved in this. It was quite the spin on the King Arthur tale, and I like how it's not really a spoiler, but it is in the afterword where he talks about that the King Arthur tale is something that's been developing. It developed over hundreds of years, and so the first iteration of it didn't even have Merlin, and King Arthur wasn't even a king. You have a lot of just different changes and things that were added over the years. So then we get like the once and future king, and which is basically, at least somewhat, what the Disney version was created after. It's completely different than where it started, and so I like his hey, look, I'm going to take this and kind of make it my own and make changes to it. I liked a lot of the changes that made this very good and made it kind of more realistic, I guess. But at the same time, there's just some frustrating things to it that I just felt like some of these classic characters that I have read in At Once and Future King, and that when you twist them too much, and suddenly they're not the hero or whatever it is, they've changed so much. I guess I'm kind of like, well, then why don't you just create your own story out of it instead of twisting the tale that we know? But again, he makes a good argument for why he can do this with the King Arthur mythos here. It was still very good. I still enjoyed it quite a bit. But I just have to say that it was kind of just a disappointment in that regard, even though there were a lot of great things about it. All right, then the last one. So as you can see, that's some hefty books this month. But then I did read, this was more for trying to be a better father, and I read Crucial Conversations by Carrie Patterson, Joseph Grenning, Ron McMillan, and Al Switzler. And it was really good. Definitely recommend it if you need to have hard conversations with people. It's kind of business focused, but I think you can use it in so many other ways. So anyway, it was good. It was very good. Is it fantasy? No, not at all. So I'll move on. TBR, what are we reading this month? So I've already started on a couple of these. My problem is right now is that I'm in the middle of a couple of them. I keep forgetting. I've realized that I have a bunch of library books just kind of on hold, and so sometimes those will just pop up and just kick out my whole TBR. So that's kind of happened here a little bit. So anyway, I was in the middle. I had at least gotten a good, I don't know, third into Age of Swords by Michael J. Sullivan when I'm starting to worry about this Black Box of Doom by Jason Pargin came in, and so I started that one as well. So I got the two of these, both excellent, both completely different. Michael J. Sullivan, Age of Swords, that's epic fantasy, continuing right after Age of Myth? Is that the first book? Which was excellent, absolutely loved it, and this is great to just be right back into not only that world, but I just love Sullivan's just his writing and just pulling you right into a nice story. Pargin is also, his pen name is David Wong, and if you've read or watched the movie of John Dies at the End, you'll know it's just bonkers, nuts, crazy. That's what he excels in, and I really enjoyed John Dies at the End, even though it is nuts. And I don't know if you follow his social media, but it's very fun to follow. He just kind of, I just tackles concepts. I don't know how else to better to say that. He likes to just have, I'm always drawn to this, is what got me into essentially focusing on economics as my undergrad degree, where I like those, where just things that we kind of take for granted as, oh, well, this happens because of this, where we actually can explain things and they don't actually go the way that you think that they go. I've been fascinated by that. If you haven't read Freakonomics, for instance, that's a great one where it kind of takes these like, common wisdom, common knowledge, and then kind of like turns it on its head and goes, actually, the reason for that is this other thing, and that you may not have thought about, but here's why. I love that. But Pargin is really great about that idea, just taking an idea and like kind of playing with it and just talking about it on his social media. But anyway, I'm starting to worry about this Black Box of Doom, which I just think is a great title. We've got a lot of that actually, which is really fun. And so I feel like one of the characters is a stand-in for him. And so anyway, so far so good. I'm about halfway through and just blazing through it. So it's been a lot of fun. All right, then I got a reading group. We kind of bailed on Guns of the Dawn as far as discussing it, but we all read it and I enjoyed it, and I ended up putting it in my top 10 of the year. But we're doing another read along, and it's going to happen, and it's with the usual Overly Average Ben, Grace Dion, Murphy Napier. A couple friends. I've been doing a lot of just awesome, fun read-alongs that I just feel like there's a reason those books end up in my top 10 for the year, for instance, because I've really had the chance to discuss in the books and then realize why I like them even more and more. I just think it's become kind of vital in my life right now. But anyway, this is something I actually did last year about the same time, but we're going to be reading The Lord of the Rings. So we're starting with The Fellowship. We might actually be doing a lot more videos. The question is, we're kind of trying to figure out schedule-wise, hopefully we can do more videos than your typical just maybe 3, 1 per book. Maybe we do 1 per book of the books in the book trilogy, which is actually 6 books in this technically 1 book, but that was divided up into 3 books. We're all on the same page, right? But anyway, I'm very excited to read it again, even though I just read it last year. I always come out with new things and new appreciation for Tolkien's work. Then this is one I'm not letting fall off the list. I'm gonna read it, and we're gonna get there eventually if library books will stop bogging me down. Sometimes they just pop in and you've been waiting for like 6 months, and suddenly it's like, okay, I guess I'm reading this right this second. I don't get to choose these things, okay? But I did promise I'm going to read this, and because especially Library on Legs, Cinna just already read the book that I recommended her, and now I'm the one that's slacking here. So The Fragment of Water by Ben Hale, very much looking forward to it. I kind of have dabbled a little bit in it, and it seems so cool already. Lots of good magic already, and that makes me happy. Then I have been also reading, this is the third book that I'm also in the middle of, and that's going to be Lightfall by Ed Crocker. I hope to get that done before its publication date, or at least around there. And because, of course, this is what happened now. I am now so bogged down, and got an extra book thrown into the mix because of the library book that came up. So anyway, Lightfall by Ed Crocker, it's been so good so far. I really love this kind of twist on vampires, and it's completely different than your usual stuff. So anyway, very excited for that. Mostly because it's been very good so far. So I am excited to literally right now go home and read it right this second. That's all I want to do. That's a great sign. Then, because apparently this is the only physical book I own in the series, I'm going to keep bringing this up. But here we go. We're going. Dungeon Crawler Carl is probably, let's be honest, going to be read very soon. This is going to be book 4, The Gate of the Feral Gods. So I'm very excited for that. These are just, like I said, my drug, my literary crack. I cannot get enough of it. It is just, it's what I want, apparently. It has me looking like, okay, I've been told that BellTube's going to do a really good deep dive into the progressive fantasy series that he's into. I'm very much looking forward to that. If he hasn't already posted it, maybe by the time I post this he has. But I am very excited to look into more of these because I kind of am obsessed at this moment. It's just such a fun new genre, and I love seeing the traditional publishing is finally like getting onto the bandwagon, and we're probably going to see a lot more go that way. So that is my update for the month of December. My TBR might be read, MBR as well for January-ish into February probably. We're trying to stick to as much as I can to what I proposed last month, which is essentially my reading list for the year, but leaving some room to do read-alongs, to jump onto things, to mood read some things here and there, which is getting harder and harder to do because my mood reading is apparently just whatever anyone decides to throw out there, and then I jump on to another read-along, and it's been a blast. So anyway, no regrets, but apparently this mood reader is struggling to actually mood read. And it's, again, I wouldn't change it for the world. But thanks so much for stopping by. Let me know, what are you reading this month? What should I be reading? That's always, I know my amount to be read is so ginormous. It's definitely bigger than Everest at this point, but I will add more. I'm not afraid. So anyway, thanks so much. We'll catch you later. Bye.